On the third day of Christmas, my wife, she made for me 3 bird sausage rolls.
Excuse me, I am a vegetarian. This is offensive.
Hi everyone, it's Silas from AsianCultureVulture.com. I'm with the amazing Gurinder Chadha and equally, if not more so, in the film, brilliant Kunal Nayyar.
Yes!
Amazing performance, great fun film. But I want to start off on a slightly more serious tack. Talk to me about the East Africa element, because that, you didn't really need to do that.
So Christmas, growing up, was a big deal for me, and like a lot of people. It's about the food, family, fun. We used to write letters to Santa. My dad used to put whiskey out for Santa and carrots for the reindeer. And so we grew up with that whole thing. And a bit later on in life, someone came into our family who had been through the Ugandan experience. And he'd been a kid when that happened, and it was around Christmas. And whenever he was at our house, he'd be the Grinch in the corner. And he was like, why are you doing this? Are you trying to be white? What's wrong with you? You know? And we go, but it's Christmas. And he goes, it's not our Christmas. And that always struck me that he was so sad. So when I came up with the idea of adapting Christmas Karma, he was very close to my brain, you know, because it was trauma, you know. And so if you've got trauma, you're going to look at the past. So it goes to Christmas past. It felt very right to go to Uganda. And I thought this was a great way to tell that story, but tell it in a way where I was able to give you a good political context.
Yeah, no, I thought it was brilliant. And was it very emotional filming? Because obviously your family origins also.
Yes, yeah, my family's from Kenya, and my dad used to pine for Kenya every day, you know. It was such an important part of his childhood. So yeah, shooting some of that stuff was really emotional in Kenya. And in the film, when you see the two young boys and then you dissolve to the older guys, you know, I always think of my dad at that moment, you know, because he did go back just before he died, and he did exactly that. He went and got sweet corn off the street and he would eat it, and his brothers were all angry with him and said, this is low class, you can't eat sweet corn off the street like this, all the Africans do this. And he was like, oh, sod off, you know, and he'd walk around eating his sweet, which is where all the corn stuff comes from. But
which we also had in Delhi growing up. Bhutta was like such a big
there
part
we
of
go,
us,
yeah. So definitely it was an emotional experience, but I think the Uganda thing will be poignant because you're not expecting it.
No, exactly. And it comes in a film which is a lot of fun and very funny and very enjoyable, and I don't want to sort of take people away from that because that's the main element of the film, really. Did you know much about the East Africa story when...
I didn't. I only knew it sort of in passing because we all knew it, you know, growing up. But I didn't understand until I really started doing research into it. I really knew what this movie was about. You know, that's really what changed it for me. I was like, oh, this is not just, I'm trying to play Scrooge. This is like some like real stuff in my life. I didn't want to play a caricature. I wanted to play a real human being.
Early on, we had a screening for Gary Barlow to just check all the songs that he'd written, and he brought his kids, you know, and family. And afterwards, they were all shocked because they didn't know anything about Uganda. And so as we came out the cinema, all his kids were kind of Googling it and looking it all up. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Look, that story hasn't been told, and I think it's brilliant that it's in there because it gives people a way in a film that obviously is a lot of about a lot of other important things.
Well, I think it's also very prescient and relevant today because people who are out there flag waving, you know, it gives a context to say, well, this is your history. Have a look at your history and understand your history, and then you'll see why Britain is how it is today. And I think that's part of the problem is people don't know their history. So in the film, we just have a small, you know, reference to it all, but enough for us to open up the debate and the dialogue. And just as Gary Barlow's kids went to look it all up, I hope other people do sort of look up and understand how circumstances and social situations in Britain are unfolding.
So, what did you reach into to get this Mr. Scrooge character? Was there somebody in your childhood who was like Mr.
Not really. A friend of mine's father had lived this experience, and when I heard that story, I realized, oh, this is what this is about how that generation of men, when they lost everything, none of them really fully recovered. I mean, maybe some have, but losing money, losing status was the meaning of losing respect. And for an Indian male, when you lose respect, it's almost as close to a death, right? So how do you survive that? But that's why I love this movie, because it's not just about pain. It's about redemption. It's about forgiveness. It's about how Christmas brings us all together in love, in harmony, in togetherness.
Interesting, you talk about redemption. Mamdani in New York, you know.
Yeah,
this is his father and his family story, you know. So super relevant as someone who did go back and rose up, you know.
And Gurinder, I have to talk to you about the cast. How did you do this? How did you assemble such a collection of Hollywood stars?
I'd met Kunal a couple of times before socially, but when it came to who is the right person to play Scrooge, I made a beeline for him because I could see it. I could see him doing it, you know.
Were you not at all scared?
No.
Not even for 1 second apprehensive? We didn't even really know until we did the camera test and then the table read. Really, the table read.
No. I knew from our first lunch at Chiltern Firehouse.
Wow.
But you have to kind of see it in your head.
I have to see it in my head. Yeah. But that's how I knew about Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Keira Knightley and all these people, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers. I meet them and I see them and I see how they operate and their vulnerabilities and their just how they conduct themselves. And then I know what I can work with to get to where I need to go.
So this is a film Kunal, you've been thinking about for a long time?
No, I started writing it during lockdown. And because I love It's a Wonderful Life and I wanted to make a film that made me feel like that film, you know, and I wanted our own film.
Yeah,
I'm lucky enough to have made a film that people watch all the time, you know, so I also am aware that I have to make films that will last, repeat watching, you know. And so with Christmas films, of course, they are repeated. So I wanted to make sure the music, the songs, the story, everything lasted, you know, for many years to come beyond when me and him are here, you know. Hopefully the film carries on as a Christmas tradition. And it's important that we have these films, not just for us, for our kids, you know, our own version of a Christmas film.
What is your abiding memory of making this film?
Oh, man. God, I mean, that's a great abiding memory. I mean, every day was a joy. It was hard work. We had to band together because we really needed each other to get this through. But to me, waking up in the morning and getting to come do this, a dream.
I think for me was the day in the crematorium where I had Kunal and then I had Eva Longoria, Billy Porter and Boy George all together singing, you know. And I was like, oh, my God, how am I going to pull this off? I'm so tired.
So tired.
And then also Billy Porter, consummate actor, performer, you know. Boy George, great singer, not an actor. Eva in all that makeup and stuff. And then Kunal emoting his heart out, you know. There's a lot going on in that moment, but the way it all came together.
And Leo Suter having his moment with Tiny
Leo,
Tim.
my God, yeah, and the whole Tiny Tim moment, it was a big emotional scene. But the way that all came together, and when Billy and Boy George sang together, I had chills. It was like, when that happened, I was like, oh my God, that was so cool. So I think it was for me, that everything coming together in that crematorium scene, but also just the journey with Kunal being constantly holding everything together with different actors that came and went throughout the course of the film.
They were amazing.
Is that an important consideration when you're putting a cast together?
Yes, particularly when you make an ensemble film, you know, you have to make sure that everyone is going to work together. And even Hugh, you know, who came in and did Marley, you know, basically 2 scenes he did, but he just killed it in those scenes. Same with Eva, same with Billy. Like, you've just got to make sure everyone, even though they may have smaller scenes, the point is that they come in and are memorable, you know.
Yeah, it's handing a lot of big egos, I don't know, you know.
No, it's all fun. It's fun. It's storytelling. That's what I love, you know. I mean, I've been given this gift to be able to tell stories in this way, using music, using images, working with great actors. And so for me, it's such a pleasure. And now I'm just really looking forward to the film being out there and people just claiming it and you know, that's it. On to the next.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thanks,
for your time.
Elish. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.